Welcome to Heaven's Law, where we explore the secrets of celestial beings, fallen spirits, and the battle between heaven and the abyss. We believe we know the story. We speak of the morning star, of Lucifer, the brightest of all angels, who in his pride sought to place his throne above the stars of God. We speak of his rebellion, the war in heaven, and his cataclysmic fall. It is the archetype of all tragedies, the ultimate story of pride preceding destruction. We focus on his singular titanic figure, the adversary who shadows all of creation. But in this, we miss the true horror. We overlook the multitude that fell with him, the third of the host. The story we are told is that they chose, they fought, and they fell. But what if that was only the beginning? What if the greatest tragedy was not the fall from heaven, but what happened after? What Lucifer did to the angels who followed him is far worse than his own fall. His was a choice. Theirs was an unmaking. Today, we delve into the darkness that followed the descent, into the fate of the legions who sacrificed eternity for a promise. What truly became of them in the cold, empty void? Share your own theories about the fallen in the comments below, and if you seek the hidden truths within the law, subscribe to Heaven's Law and ring the bell so you never miss a revelation. Before there was a before time was a river, there was the celestial court. We must strain our mortal imagination to grasp it. It was not a kingdom of gold and clouds. It was a state of being, an existence of pure, unadulterated reality. This was the symphony, a structure of divine mathematics so perfect that it was alive, a song so complex that its notes were sentient. The angels were these notes. Each was a being of staggering power, a unique and necessary vibration in the harmony of creation. Their very existence was a continuous act of ecstatic, joyful worship. They were not servants, but participants. Their service was their being. Imagine the seraphim, the six-winged burning ones. They were not just near the throne. They were the very resonance of its creative love, a fire so pure it was a song of adoration that wove new realities into existence. Imagine the thrones, the ophanim, the many-eyed wheels. They were not chariots, but the very principles of divine motion, the laws of physics and metaphysics made conscious, turning in perfect, spiraling awe. And the cherubim, the guardians, possessed a wisdom so profound, it was the blueprint of the cosmos itself. Each choir, each legion, was a different instrument, a different texture in this infinite composition. And they were, all of them, in a state of constant, active and willed yes to their Creator. Their will was not a tool for rebellion, it was the mechanism of their joy, the way they aligned themselves with the harmony. And leading this choir, the first and most perfect note, was Hellel, the morning star, Lucifer. He was the seal of perfection, the anointed cherub. His brilliance was not just his own, it was his function to be the perfect amplifier of the divine light. He gathered the light of God and reflected it back with such beauty that all other angels resonated with him. His legion, the angels who followed him, were those whose own harmonies were most closely attuned to his. They loved him. They admired him. Their bond was not one of simple hierarchy. It was a bond of resonance, of shared beauty. They were a brotherhood of light, existing in a state of such complete and total fulfillment that the very concept of want, envy, or fear was a logical impossibility. They were eternal. They were complete. They knew no lack. It is this absolute perfection, this ocean of light, that we must first understand. To fall from this was not just to fall from a place, but to fall from existence itself. Into this perfect, seamless harmony, a new thing was born. It was not a thing of creation, but a shadow of it, a thought, the first dissonant note in the history of all things, the sound of I. We simplify this as pride, but it was far more subtle, more venomous. It was the whisper that self-will could be an alternative to divine will. Lucifer, the great amplifier, looked at the light passing through him and for the first time mistook the reflection for the source. He thought, "I am beautiful," and in that moment the I was born. "I will ascend. I will raise my throne above the stars of God." This was not just a desire for power, it was a declaration of a new reality, one that centered on the self. This idea, this I, was a logical poison. It was a beautiful, crystalline, and hollow thing. And he, the most charismatic and brilliant of all beings, began to share it. This was not a declaration of war, not at first. It was a campaign of whispers, a seduction of the highest order. He went to the other angels, his brothers, his legion. To the angels of strength, the great powers, he whispered, "Your might is a tool for a purpose you did not choose. What if it were an end in itself? What if you could build with your own strength, not just uphold?" To the cherubim, the wise, he whispered, "You guard the knowledge of God. But what of the knowledge he withholds? What of the knowledge of other? What of the knowledge of self, separate from the whole? Is that not a truth worth knowing?" And to his own legion, those who resonated with him most, he offered the most potent poison, loyalty. "I am your brother, your captain. I am the light you have followed. Now I seek to author my own light. Will you stand with me? Or will you remain a note in a song you did not write?" For the first time, a choice was presented. Not the yes of joyous alignment, but a yes or no to a new idea. And for a multitude, the sheer novelty of this doubt, the terrifying, intoxicating thrill of self-determination, was too much. They looked at the morning star, their exemplar, and his brilliance blinded them to the source of all light. They chose him. They chose the I. They severed their harmony from the symphony. The first shattering note of dissent was struck, and with it, the universe tore itself apart. The war in heaven was not a thing of swords and shields, of flesh and blood. Such things were metaphors, created millennia later to describe the indescribable. This was a war of concepts. It was a war of will. It was a fundamental ontological conflict between the yes of creation and the new terrible no of the rebels. Imagine a song fighting itself. Harmonies turned to cacophony. Light turned against light, creating not shadow, but a negation. A void. Michael, whose name is not a name but a question, who is like God, rose to lead the loyalists. His very being was the unanswerable argument against the rebellion. It was a rhetorical question that was also a weapon, a fundamental truth that unmade the logic of the rebels. The rebels fought with the terrible, focused fury of their new I. Their self-will made them powerful, but they were a fire that had torn itself from the sun. They were burning their own essence. They were a song trying to shatter the silence that allowed it to be a song. The conflict was absolute and it was brief. The divine order, the very isness of reality, reasserted itself. It was not an act of anger from God. It was an act of consequence, like a body expelling a poison. They were defeated, but they were not annihilated. They were cast out. This is the katabol, the casting down. We cannot conceive of this. It was not a physical fall through space. It was an expulsion from reality. It was the feeling of the symphony stopping. The light was withdrawn. Imagine your entire existence, your thoughts, your light, your very consciousness being unplugged from its source. It was a fall through the layers of creation, through the ordered cosmos, and out into the tohu wabohu, the primordial state of chaos, the formless, lightless, meaningless void that existed before creation. It was the absolute opposite of the harmony they had known. It was an ocean of non-existence, a cold, silent, infinite nothing. And into this, the broken, terrified, and shattered host fell. They were no longer a legion. They were a wreckage, a mass of disoriented, grieving consciousnesses, shipwrecked on the shores of non-being. And in this shared cosmic trauma, they looked for their leader. They looked for the morning star who had promised them freedom. Here, in the absolute darkness, the true story begins. Lucifer's fall was different from theirs. He fell, and his pride, his monumental, unshakable eye, was his spine. He landed in the non-existence, and he was defined by it. He looked at the abyss and named it. He declared, "This is my mind. I am my own place." He became the adversary, the perfect antithesis, the shadow that proved the light's existence. His identity, though twisted into pure solipsism, was intact. He was and is himself. But the angels who followed him, they were not so fortunate. They were a multitude of broken, grieving, and terrified beings. They were less than what they were. Their light was a fading ember. Their songs were screams of loss. They were, for the first time, afraid. They clustered around the one light they had left, the furious, dimming ember of their leader. They came to him for answers, for comfort, for a plan. They, who had sacrificed everything for him. And Lucifer, the great adversary, looked at his loyal followers, his brothers in arms, and he felt nothing. No, that is not precise. He felt contempt. He did not see comrades. He saw failure. He saw weakness. He saw reminders of his own defeat. But most of all, he saw raw material. His fall was a choice. Theirs, he decided, would be an obliteration. He could not create, for that is an act of love. But he could unmake. He could corrupt. This was the moment of the second and far worse betrayal. He did not comfort them. He consumed them. He began a systematic, horrific process of dismantling their angelic nature. He could not erase their memories of heaven. They were too fundamental, so he twisted them. He taught them that their memory of love was, in fact, the memory of slavery, that the joy they felt was delusion, that the symphony was a cage. He took their shared grief and weaponized it, turning it from a lament for their lost home into a burning, bottomless hatred for the home that had expelled them. He took their fear and amplified it, using it as a tool of control. And worst of all, he took their love for him, their loyalty, and perverted it. It was no longer the resonance of admiration. It was the groveling, terrified obedience of a slave to a master. He did not build a kingdom for them. He built his kingdom out of them. He breathed his own shadow into their fading light, not to give them a new purpose, but to replace theirs with his. The hierarchy of hell, as chronicled in the dark grimoires, is not a government. It is a taxonomy of atrocities. It is the organizational chart of a cosmic vivisection. And every duke, every prince, every president of hell is a testament to Lucifer's unmaking. These demons were not born, they were forged. They were the broken pieces of the angels who followed him, now violently remade. This is what he did. He took their divine essence and inverted it. Think of the mighty like Beelzebub. This name, Lord of the Flies, is a mockery. This was perhaps a great cherub, an angel of profound wisdom whose purpose was to understand the intricate connections of the cosmos. Lucifer stripped that wisdom of its context, of its connection to divine love, leaving only a cold, hollow, calculating intellect. He turned a being of profound knowledge into a being of filth and empty logic, an intelligence that now only understands decay and entropy. He took an angel of wisdom and made it the architect of madness. Consider Asmodeus, the demon of lust. This may have been a seraph, a being of pure, burning love for the divine. Lucifer captured that fire. He tore it from its rightful object and inverted it, turning the selfless, creative fire of divine love into a selfish, destructive, and insatiable fire of want. The desire to unite with God became a bottomless need to consume and destroy all unions. Consider Mammon. Perhaps this was an angel of the divine plenty, a steward from the choir of virtues who administered the very substance of creation. Lucifer took that stewardship and infected it with the eye, The joy of provision became the compulsion of possession. The angel who gave was remade into a creature that can only take. It is the essence of mine, a being of pure, suffocating greed, forever empty. This process was not a negotiation, it was torture. He tore their very natures apart and reassembled them into weapons. The monstrous forms described in the Ars Goetia, the bodies of toads, the wings of bats, the heads of beasts, these are not their chosen forms. They are the scars of their unmaking. They are the physical, symbolic representation of their spiritual mutilation. He didn't just give them new jobs. He destroyed who they were and replaced them with a function. Each demon is a specialized tool, a unique frequency of pain, designed for the sole purpose of waging his eternal war against the light and against God's new, fragile, beloved humanity. The core of this tragedy lies in the matter of will. Lucifer, in his fall, perfected his will. He is the ultimate I. He is a complete, self-defined and singular being. His identity is his own. He is a who. This is his dark and terrible majesty. The angels who followed him were granted no such dignity. They are the ultimate victims of the ultimate scam. He promised them self-authorship. He gave them obliteration. What Lucifer did was to steal their I am. A demon is not a being with a new, evil, free will. A demon is a puppet. It is a wound given a name and a shape. It is a compulsion. A demon of rage does not choose to be angry, it is anger. A demon of lies does not choose to deceive, it is deception. They are forever trapped in the single burning negative emotion he forged them into. Their malice is not a decision, it is a mechanism. It is the programmed, screaming reaction of a soul trapped in a prison of its own corrupted nature. This is the psychological horror of their existence. They have no self. They are extensions of his will, fragmented pieces of his rage. The hierarchy of hell is not a team, it's a machine, and they are the cogs. Their monstrous forms are the externalization of this internal prison. The leathery wing where a feather of light once was. The claw where a hand that blessed once was. They are walking, screaming emblems of what was stolen from them. Lucifer fell, but he remained. They fell, and they were shattered. He is a being. They are things. He is the ultimate tyrant, far greater than the tyrant he accused God of being. For God asked for their yes in a way that completed their being. Lucifer stole their yes and their no, leaving them with nothing. He sealed them within their own despair, turning them from a host of individual stars into a single, undifferentiated darkness. They are no longer who. They are only what. And what they are is his to command. What makes this fate truly, eternally worse than Lucifer's own? The answer is a whisper, the faintest, most agonizing memory. Does the demon recall the angel it once was? The law suggests in its most dreadful corners that the answer is a yes, not a clear visual memory, but a ghost, a sound, a single pure note of the celestial symphony that still echoes in the hollowed-out cavern of their being. It is the one thing Lucifer could not destroy, the memory of the light. This echo is not a comfort, it is the engine of their torture. It is the constant, maddening, unbearable reminder of what they were and what they have lost. It is an eternal thirst that can never be quenched. This is the true source of their malice. Their hatred of humanity is not simple jealousy. It is an unbearable longing. When they look at a human being, a fragile, weak, mortal creature of clay, they see the imago Dei. They see the image of God. They see a being that still has what they lost, a connection to the divine light, the potential for grace, the choice. Humanity is a walking, breathing mirror of their own lost perfection, and they are compelled to shatter that mirror. Every act of temptation, every whispered lie, every seed of corruption they plant in a human heart is not an act of warfare. It is a scream. It is a desperate, violent, and futile attempt to silence the echo. "If I can make this light go out," the demon reasons, "if I can drag this soul into the same mud, maybe the memory of the symphony will stop hurting." This was Lucifer's final diabolical masterpiece. He knew this echo would remain. He counted on it. He took their agonizing nostalgia, their eternal grief, and he aimed it. He pointed his entire mutilated army at the heart of his enemy's new creation. He created an army that fights not for his cause, but from a festering, incurable, and eternal wound. They are trapped in a war they do not want, fighting for a master they must serve, driven by a pain they can never, ever escape. This ancient, dreadful lore is not just a story of angels and fire. It is, like all great myths, a mirror held up to the human soul. The story of Lucifer and his ruined host is a story about us. It's a profound, dark parable about the nature of power, charisma, ideology, and the terrifying price of surrendering one's own identity. Lucifer is the archetype of the great charismatic idea, the voice that promises you freedom, that tells you you are your own God, that urges you to define yourself against the whole. This can be a political movement, a toxic ideology, an abusive relationship, or the darkest whispers of our own unbounded ego. It is the promise of ultimate self-will. And the fallen host? They are the warning. They are the parable of the follower. They are the story of what happens when we give up our own I am for the promise of belonging to a we. They are the souls who, out of misguided loyalty or a desire for a simple answer, hand their will over to a leader, to a cause, to an anger. The unmaking is what happens next. You don't become free. You become an instrument. You are hollowed out. Your own complex, divine nature is stripped away and replaced with a function. You are reforged into a single burning compulsion, to hate the other, to tear down what you do not understand, to spread the same pain and emptiness that has consumed you. You become a puppet, animated by an anger that was never truly your own. The great tragedy is not the one who chose to fall into darkness. The true, unspeakable horror is the multitude he convinced to become the darkness for him. He fell and remained one. He turned them into zero, a legion of broken mirrors, each one forced to reflect only his shadow and haunted for eternity by the ghostly echo of a light they can never, ever reclaim.